my session is on how to invest safely, and Devashish is going to talk about where to invest your money, and I'm going to talk about where you could lose your money. It's properly divided into two parts, and we think that if you are post 60 and you're retired and you're living on your nest egg, or you intend to start living on your nest egg, then avoiding losses is absolutely the key. And when you look at, our whole lifestyle and living has changed. If you look at it, we are redefining what is seniority. Okay. People say 80 is the new 60 or 60 is the new 40. All it means is that you have to be prepared to work for much longer, most probably, or live on your savings for much longer. So it could be as long as 25 to 30 years that you may have to, if you decide that you're going to stop working at 60, then you have to be prepared for a situation that where you're going to live for 25 to 30 years, if you're lucky, a healthy life, but live on savings, which means one crucial area that you have to keep in mind all the time is I can't lose the principal. That has to be the primary focus. Whatever happens, whether, your interest rates go up or go down, you have to focus a lot on the safety of the principal amount that you invest. While things are going good for senior citizens, we had a friend last week who suddenly announced to us at the age of 67 that he's just got married. People are renewing their lives. So get new teeth, new knees, whatever, and, you're back into business. But this is the flip side, which is not in our hands. So you have to be prepared for it. The numbers are quite scary. There are 100 million senior citizens in India, but we do not, unfortunately, have a strong lobby when it comes to demanding financial rights. It's just too disparate, and we've had a situation where we heard that one finance minister said, you're talking about people who eat 2 square meals a day, right? So they're not our focus. So people like us, and in fact, the entire membership of Moneylife Foundation, whether you're 25 or you're 95, the problem is that the government thinks that we are the last priority. We are not a vote bank. In fact, we keep saying our mission is to be the voice of people like us who pay their taxes, but do not have a voice in policy making because we are not a vote bank. So you have to remember that we don't have answers for everything. What we tell you here is what is today and what needs to be fought for and what are the pitfalls, because we are very conscious of the fact that unless all of us gather together and make our voice heard more forcefully, we do not matter to any government, because we don't bring them their votes in large numbers. So geriatric care is something that I know people, I'm sure Dignity is doing it for the last 2 decades or more. They are fighting and lobbying for it. There's very little that's happened. Infrastructure is poor. When the government talks about social security and pensions, the amounts are so pitiful that it's not going to even give you 1 week's money. So, all that is sound bites that you have to ignore, because again, it's of no use to people like us. Regulation on a whole lot of new areas, even where you're spending money, is grossly inadequate. And I'm going to come to it one by one. We are such a different situation from, say, Europe or America. You go to Europe and it is the senior citizens who call the shots. They have the money. In fact, the youngsters will say what the seniors want gets done. They have the savings. They fund things. In fact, I remember 25 years ago, I was in Berlin, and the opera was entirely rebuilt after the war by money that was donated by senior citizens. That is the kind of money that they have. Even in America, they have a huge group called the American Association of Retired Persons, which in a population of 240 million is 40 million strong. So I would urge you, come and join groups like us. It is free. You fill up that feedback form, you get an automatic membership. You not only get to attend seminars like these, most of them are free. In fact, all of them in the foundation are free, but you will also get to be a part of efforts that we make in terms of advocacy and lobbying for policy change. So what do you do at this age? You have to prepare for some of these things. One is that galloping costs of living, of Medicare, of insurance. All three are areas that we have tackled. We have lots of cover stories on them. You have to plan for renovation. Like I said, you spend on it, on your heart, on your knees, on your teeth, not just on your homes, and you're good to go another 2-3 decades. But you need to financially prepare for it, because these are costs that all of us will probably have to incur, and the amount that you have to spend is increasing every year. I've already told you have to prepare to live a retired life for 20 to 30 years. Income from savings in a modern economy will fluctuate. You've had absolutely low interests on your FDs. That's the time most senior citizens got cheated by having invested in plantation companies or dubious fixed deposits, because they say bank FD interest is going down, let's invest somewhere else. It can be a big mistake. And what happens is a lot of people are property rich and cash poor. All of us, Indians, the big cost item that we have in our lives is the roof on our head. And you want to live in it till the end of your days, which means that doesn't give you money. Luckily, there are products like reverse mortgage where you can encash on this property, but there are lots of issues to it, including your own mindset. Coming back to what I said earlier, imperatives: avoid losses, okay? Avoid financial and emotional traps. This I will explain at length, because it's an important issue. Make safe and sensible investments, because trying to get the highest return is not important when you're going to live on your savings. Strive for financial independence. All of us have to work at that. And then what do you do with the assets that you have collected all your lives? You have to plan for how you're going to pass it on to your loved ones. So how to avoid losses? You have to be scam smart. And in this, I keep pointing out that one of the reasons why people lose so much of money all over the world, and this has nothing to do with age, is that new research has shown this. Incidentally, we've spent 3-4 decades of hearing caveat emptor, which means buyer beware. So they used to throw things at you. We had a disclosure-based regulation with lots of things written in the fine print. It was your job to understand what is there. If you didn't read those 30 pages in small text, it was your fault. So that was caveat emptor. After 2008, when people around the world have invested in crazy kind of derivatives, which were afterwards labeled toxic derivatives, after a global financial crisis, people suddenly realized that how on earth did sane, sensible people go and even invest in products that on the face of it looked dangerous? For instance, we keep saying, how on earth did people think filling out a 10-question survey like Speak Asia would actually give them 1,000 rupees? It's only after Speak Asia collapses that minds open and you realize that it was all a scam. So modern research has gone into it post 2008, and they have discovered that human minds, after so many thousands of years of evolution, are still not hardwired to understand financial products. The mind is completely hardwired to make how to live. Okay, it can sense danger, but understanding minute calculations is not what the mind does easily. There are some people who are wonderful at it. The vast majority doesn't understand, and there is nothing to be embarrassed about. It is not about whether you learnt your tables when you were 2 years old and whether your parents taught you basic maths or not. How much ever you may know number crunching, our mind is not hardwired to understand basic things like financial risk. Okay, and the reason why this happens is part of the reason why this happens is that we tend to translate our experience of buying consumer goods to financial products. So what do? You buy a toaster, by and large, you unpack it, you plug it in, it works. You buy a washing machine, you plug it in, it works. You buy a financial product, there is no question of plugging it in anywhere. You're going to know the results 1 year later. And this applies across the board. We also make a second mistake, again translated from our purchase of consumer products, which is if you think you bought a big brand, you think it has to come with some advantages. So if you're buying a Mercedes, it should definitely be better than a Maruti car, right? It has to have more features. You're paying more. It has to work better. That's our mindset. That works in consumer goods. It does not work in the financial sector. However big the name, whether it is Citibank, whether it's Barclays, whether it's Standard Chartered, whether it's HSBC, it is just as likely or more likely to give you the same average returns as your nationalized banks, or the same pathetic returns or even cheat you. And we will go through a lot of examples of this for you to know what I'm talking about. So big brands is not equal to better services when it comes to financial products. You can't test drive a mutual fund. So you can't go home and plug and play anything. You made the investment, you're going to sit quietly for a year, and only then you're going to know the performance. If you buy insurance, you're going to keep paying premiums maybe for 10 years. It's at the time when you really need it will you know whether your insurance company is good or bad, whether they're going to honor their commitment or not, because that's the time they start looking at things with a fine-tooth comb. So mistakes in the financial world become evident much later, and that is why you have to be far more careful about what you do. Like I keep saying, you can, you buy even a car as fancy as this, you can actually drive it away right then if you have that kind of money. But even if you put that kind of money into a financial product, you know nothing for a year. So it doesn't matter whether your investment is 5,000 or 5 crores, the situation is the same. Results will be known later, which means that you have to be far more careful. The other thing that happens is that when it comes to the financial world, it's even in the consumer world, okay? People are pitching things at you all the time. And it is for you to be able to look through it and decide whether something is good for you or not. So business is looking for sales. Everyone's selling their product. They're putting out advertisements. All the agents, whether it's an insurance agent or a mutual fund distributor, is trying to sell you something. Today you go to a bank, the relationship manager doesn't want you to make a deposit. He's trying to sell you a ULIP or a wealth management scheme. The media itself is not, we think the media is going to analyze things. We sometimes get carried away by the shouting that happens at 9 o'clock on television. We think the media is exposing everything. No, it's not. When their advertising interest is concerned, media will not write. Okay, or they will write something with no names. So you read a story, you still don't know which bank, who, what, who fooled whom. You're completely clueless. And we then expect all these people to deliver on their promises, which obviously doesn't happen because they are out there to sell and they're out there to get your money, not to deliver on anything. When it comes to senior citizens, we need to worry about one more thing, which is cognitive impairment begins to happen. And, I know that for a lot of us, it's hard to believe, but statistics are something that you can't argue with. All over the world, the number of senior citizens that get cheated by financial products is so significantly large that we have to accept that there is something happening out there which one can't explain or can be explained by the fact that there's some amount of cognitive impairment that happens. Senior citizens tend to trust people, and it happens very often with relationship managers. The minute someone says, uncle, main aapko bata dunga, main sab kar dunga, I will send you we are happy to depend on someone who seems so honest, fresh-faced, concerned about you, and sometimes it's not correct. And I'm going to run you through a few examples where people have got cheated, they haven't even told their children. So one thing that I'm going to suggest is when you're making investments, look for a second opinion. You don't have to listen to the person, but at least keep someone informed, because when you discuss it, maybe someone will come back and tell you whether something is right or wrong. So please keep people in the loop. Look at the statistics I talked about. 80% of scam victims in the US are over 65. It's quite a frightening number. 94% of persons claiming to be wealth managers are more product salesmen, what I told you earlier, that they are hard selling something. And elder abuse in the US is as much as 2.6 billion. In India, it has not even been calculated in a systematic manner, and I think it's probably more. But in India, senior citizens are of two kinds. One is that you are in a Hindu undivided family kind of setup where there is a lot of respect because you're the patriarch of the family and you have some amount of clout, but you don't have an income. Then you are a pensioner, so you're getting some amount of money that comes to you every month because you're a government servant, but that again is a small group. All others are in a pretty sad state if their savings are not safe. Another myth, okay, that if you're smart, you don't get cheated. In fact, it's just to the contrary. There is plenty of examples of the most smart people. And in fact, when I do seminars which are not necessarily targeted only at senior citizens, I give them lots of examples of people who are very who ought to know their subject. Sometimes even in the financial world, who make the biggest blunders. I'm going to run you through some of them. Okay, forget these numbers. These are just to show you that this is based on some kind of survey and statistics. It's not what I'm saying. So what can go wrong? You have this example here, which is one extreme. This man was a ticket checker. We wrote a cover story on him. He retired from the railways, and he was persuaded that if he had 2 wives and 4 children. So he was told, if you buy an insurance policy for all of them, you have taken care of them for the rest of your life, and you will get interest while you're alive. And I think if all of you, even I bought a ULIP, so I'm sure everyone's bought a ULIP at some time. You know what a hoax it is, right? So you don't get any interest of that kind. We then we went to IRDA and we got him his 12 lakhs back, which was the entire fund that he had. Not everybody is so lucky, but at least this guy is someone you would classify as semi-literate. Okay, these are IAS officers, someone from agricultural university, the ex-dean, someone from Tata Motors, who were duped by a brokerage firm who says that we will manage your portfolio. Innumerable cases like this. Like I said, when interest rates were going down, lots of people, especially senior citizens, went around looking for who can they trust with their money. They didn't make an attempt to understand the market or understand investment. They said, let me find a person I can trust, and I'm going to give him a check of 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs, whatever, and he's going to manage my money for me. It doesn't work like that. These people have been ripped off. And this group also, they're fighting, they have clout, but they have not managed to get their money back. This example is quite scary. This is Hong Kong Bank. When we helped Sucheta Krishnamurthy get back her money, this case came to us immediately afterwards, but unfortunately we couldn't do much. Okay? Sagar. So here is somebody, Mr. Rakshit. When I say cognitive impairment, this is a classic example, because if any of you can tell me how you think this could have happened, because I was really shaken up when I saw this story. And even more, let me give the gist of it. This man is a marine engineer. He had 72 lakhs in Hong Kong Bank in a portfolio. Bit by bit, he has been persuaded to withdraw that money and put it in other schemes. So they told him, put it in mutual funds, you'll get higher returns. And his wealth manager caused a loss of 25 lakhs. Now, if I were him, this is where I'm saying that all the points at which there should have been a wake-up call and you would have withdrawn the money. He's lost 25 lakhs. He still does not withdraw the money. Okay. He then is persuaded to give, he continues with that investment. We don't know why. He gives checks of 44 lakhs to this company, which belongs to the father of the wealth manager. Okay. Then another 11.5 lakhs to his mother. I mean, I don't even know whether he was hypnotized or what, but the bank has washed its hands off it. He transferred a flat to the RM relationship manager's family. Okay. To the extent that he went to the registrar's office and signed those papers. His daughter has come to us with this, and I mean, I'm sorry, but my first question was, you should have been there for your father instead of coming to us after there is such a huge loss, because what can you do? We went to the RBI and asked them, and they said, look, when a man goes on his own to the registration office and signs something, how can we say he's got cheated? But can anyone in this room explain to me, why would someone sit and write this off? He doesn't have a bad relationship with his family. He doesn't have a bad relationship with his daughter. I mean, can anyone tell me what would have happened? Any thoughts? Hypnotized, I know. Because
which form?
And he's left Hong Kong Bank. Okay, the relationship, RM. So Hong Kong Bank is, so you can come to the first row. So the Hong Kong Bank has washed its hands off him. But my only, surmise would be hypnotism.
Actually, a friend of ours, a lady, similar case, similar amount of money with the HSBC bank, she had a sense of helplessness and felt that this young man was helping her in a good way.
But even when money was being lost,
she only realized at the end of the year that all her money had gone.
But there are lots of cases.
1 year you wait.
HSBC and Standard Chartered, okay? 2 banks, sorry, I'm naming names, but lots of examples. So here's where I say, keep your children, keep somebody informed, because someone who's not meeting that person directly will be able to probably look at documents or sit aside and say, something wrong over here, and probably get you help before it is too late. This is another example, okay? Equally scary. Now, this comes to us. Senior IAS officer who's now with the Tatas referred this case to us. This man is actually managing the Provident Fund and investments of Tata Motors, running into hundreds of crores. So he's not a person who doesn't understand money. He understands money extremely well. And we used to run an insurance helpline. We have closed it down. But we used to think 7, 8, 14 policies we have seen. We've seen a microfinance guy buy 28 policies because, he was pleasing the bank and then getting a loan every time he bought a policy. But 39 policies is something that is a startling number even to us. And all of it was false. He's paid a premium of 33 lakhs and we have no idea what to tell him. We said you can try and file a police complaint, but the benefit of doubt, how can you get a benefit of doubt when you bought 39 policies and you are a person who's supposed to understand finance, managing money?
Policies.
They're with him, but they're single premium. He thought they're single premium policies, and it turns out that he has to pay a premium every year. So when things came up for renewal, he realized that he's been completely taken for a ride. So now if he doesn't pay, he loses what he's paid. So he's paid 33 lakhs. If he doesn't keep paying for a minimum of 3 to 4 years, he loses everything. And, paying that money for another 3 years, not possible even for him. So, because the amount is really big, as you can see. Imagine paying 33 lakhs every year. And this is not the only example of this kind. We've had another case where a professor had 25 lakhs that he got as his retirement fund. And they sold him a similar policy where he ended up finding out a year later that he has to pay 25 lakhs every year. Think about the heartlessness of somebody who is selling a policy like this. But this is what you have to be prepared for. You can't say that I didn't read the fine print. It can be as bad as this. So it's not a scare scenario, but I'm trying to tell you these are real cases that have come to us. So we are not saying cognitive impairment, hypnotism, whatever. I have no idea what it is. I'm saying be careful because this is what can happen. So coming back to safety first, what do you need to avoid? Avoid any schemes that are not regulated by a regulator, first of all. Even there, like I told you, those insurance schemes, there's no point in going to IRDA. Nothing's going to happen because you have to explain why you signed on the dotted line and bought things. But at least if it is a proper regulator, you have a course of action. You can go to the regulator. There is an ombudsman usually. You can file a complaint. Without it, you can't even do it, which is all the plantation companies. You remember in the 80s and 90s, actually, mid-90s, there was no recourse. They were not under any regulation. Art funds. Many people have lost money in Ocean. Even today, the guy is back in business, but people haven't got their money back. And like I told you, it is so shameless that the man is back in business. The case is in SEBI. And because class action doesn't work as yet, and because we can't get together, these people who've got cheated are all over the country, and many of them are very rich, so they can afford to write off 5 lakhs and 10 lakhs, or they think it's too much trouble to get together to fight for it. And people don't want, people's attitude is, I've already lost 10 lakhs, why should I spend another 50,000 to, even as a part of a group, on a lawyer or something else, because the cases will drag on. So in India, we allow crooks to get away because we don't have class action. This is one of the things that we need to lobby for. We need to be able to allow lawyers to take on our cases on contingency basis. I hope all NGOs who work with people like us will get together to impress on the government that you have to allow lawyers to take on cases like this. Otherwise, we can't afford to go to court, because even when a lawyer tells you I'm appearing pro bono, just the costs, including the cost of an advocate on record and everything, becomes prohibitive. And again, NGOs like us get very, very little funding, because I keep saying, as far as the NGO world is concerned, we are not in more glamorous areas where it tugs at the heartstrings. So if you say it's cancer patients, or if you say it's the destitute, or it's something else, people give money. I and you would give money to causes like that more easily than we would for financial literacy or financial advocacy, right? But the point is, then you have nobody who's fighting for your rights. You don't even have a system where someone anyone can fight for your rights, because if the lawyer was allowed to charge contingency fees, then he takes on the responsibility as well as the costs to fight, and we do not even have a system of exemplary damages. That is even worse. So it's not even worth the while of a lawyer to take the risk on fighting a case, because in most cases, even in consumer courts, we have found that they give you whatever is your money back, and they will give you costs which are so ridiculously low, which are not even 1/10 of what you've actually spent, and absolutely no damages or legal fees. And this is the experience of every single NGO that has fought consumer cases or helped people fight consumer cases. So essentially my message is that you're on your own. You have to be smart. You have to be careful. So the only way you can do it is avoid anything that looks like a problem, because you know that otherwise you'll end up with a fight on your hands. One way to look at it is simple. If it sounds too good to be true, it usually is. Okay. So anytime somebody gives you, say 3% more than a bank FD, it's not something to be happy about. You just have to investigate, ask questions, because nobody who's in business is giving you a higher return unless there is some problem. And the higher return is always associated with a very high risk. I'll give you an example. I'm sure everyone in this room remembers C.R. Bansali, right? Any of you lost money in C.R. Bansali? No? Good, smart set of people here. But I remember a huge bunch of people came to meet me, and I had written the first story on C.R. Bansali. And they kept saying, help us to fight it. I used to be in the Times of India those days. And since we knew for a long time that this man is really shady, and none of his, he handles the most strange public issues, we were wondering why would people go and invest money in C.R. Bansali. So somebody from Kolhapur had something interesting to say. He said, look, you as a journalist may know a lot of things from the inside. I'm sitting in Kolhapur. You tell me what is wrong with what I have done. I looked at his credit rating for the money that he had. He had a AAA rating. I looked at the fact that he not only has got the highest number of issues handled as an investment banker, every time I open the papers, I see him posing with the SEBI chairman. So one assumes that, he's a respectable top of the line investment banker. I look at the fact that the RBI has given him a provisional license to open a bank. The regulator is supposed to check hard enough before allowing someone to start a mutual fund. He was allowed to start a mutual fund. So he says, what did I do wrong? And with all this, if this company is giving 3% more and a gift to people who are opening FDs, what is wrong in what I did by hawking it? And I had no answer. Okay. But I think the answer is just this, that if he was so good, he would have given 0.5% less, not more. Because it should be much easier for him to raise money. If you are AAA rated, if you are so good, you don't need to give a higher interest, because no one's running a charity, right? He's not saying, I'd like all you people in the room, I think you all deserve 2% more. He's giving it to everybody, and he's giving it because that's the only cost at which he's able to raise money. He has to give you a gift because that is the cost at which he's able to raise money. But the number of senior citizens that have lost money over there is humongous, because when you're living on retirement funds, you feel 1% more or 2% more is that much more spending money every month. And that is a cardinal mistake. Every time there is a company which raises fixed deposits at a higher rate, the biggest victims are senior citizens, because they are most tempted with that 1, 2, 3% more. So if the interest rate is higher, think twice. If all of you use the net, so you must remember when you use email, this is what you watch out for. No widow of an African dictator or son or whatever is out to give you money. And believe me, it's not a joke. The head of a consumer organization lost 35 lakhs and his reputation forever had to be removed because he gave 35 lakhs of his own savings, thinking that he is not only going to get $25 million from Africa, but he had these wonderful visions of setting up an NGO in India and an NGO in Africa so that one one never needs to do fundraising again. Noble thoughts, but nobody's out there to give it to you. RBI governor has no escrow account, is not going to give you. In fact, if you look at any RBI governor's email, if you ever get an email from him, the signature includes, we do not have escrow accounts, we do not give money, we do not retain any money. So if you get emails saying that you're going to get something, that is completely fake. And one thing that people fall for a lot is this last one, where your mailbox gets compromised. Everybody in your mailbox gets your address book, gets an email saying that I'm stranded in Spain or in Paris or, in Sri Lanka, wherever it is. There are different variations of it. And I've been robbed. My passport is gone and I've lost everything. I'm trying to raise money from friends to buy my ticket back. I will give you the money as soon as I come to India. You get a mail like this, do one thing first. Change your password. It's not a very serious virus. You change your password, everything is fine. I know some people who close down their accounts, you don't need to do anything. You want to verify, pick up the phone and call the person. He'll be very much in India and he will tell you he's got 20 calls like this from various people in the morning. So it's as simple, but people fall for this. So don't ever transfer any money. The other big thing is the phishing and wishing. Okay. I mean, you know that the Chief Minister's office on February 7th, we had our 5th year anniversary and we were praising the Chief Minister for having an IT department which gives better judgments when people lose money in ATMs and IT frauds. And last week I saw that the Chief Minister's PS went and gave his PIN and sign-in details and lost money. Since he was the Chief Minister's PS, I think people were arrested by the end of the day. If it's you and me, we will be chasing it for months together. Nothing is going to happen. So essentially, what is phishing? Anything that on email says your account is going to be closed, you need to re-verify or your account will be disbanded, whatever, please don't believe any of it. Okay, it's not going to happen. You do not need to do the verification there. If you have any doubts, especially when it's got anything to do with e-commerce, please have the call center number from your bank statement. Call that number and find out if there is any verification going on. The answer will always be no. And the reason why I say keep your statement handy and call that number is this new problem which is called wishing. And these scamsters use very well trained call center voices. They sound like they've called from the bank and they do two things. This is how the Chief Minister's PA got fooled. They first call you and they say, I'm calling, let's say ICICI Bank, since it's sponsoring this seminar. I'm calling from ICICI Bank and we're doing this verification exercise. So don't worry. You'll get a call from one of my colleagues in another 15 minutes and he will ask you for your PIN number and some verification details. Please don't hesitate. This is an official verification going on. Please give it. Okay, so your mind is framed to expect that second call. And this is all psychological games. So when the call comes, you automatically give the details. Please don't do it. The second thing sometimes people have done is that I will call you back and they call the same number and give the details. Okay, so that's why I'm insisting, do not call that number. Please keep your bank statement if you want to verify. Otherwise, just put that phone down. You don't even need to answer them. But if you feel worried, then call the right official number from your bank statement and not any other. So which then brings us to banking safely. Any questions so far?
Yeah, one more type of the scam which is going on right now is you get calls from verification department of LIC department.
Insurance. In a big way. And in fact, this insurance one, I must tell you, I'm glad you brought it up, sir, because the insurance one is quite scary. It is an inside job in a lot of cases. They know something about you. So there are people, and in fact, SEBI put out a press release on this, and we said that the only reason why SEBI's worked so hard is probably it was some IAS officer. But what they do is that this particular case, they knew that the couple's son had died in an accident. Okay. Then they target him. They knew his name and they said that he had certain policies and he's going to, you're going to get 5 lakhs back because he had opened something which you don't know about. And if you pay another lakh or 1.5 lakh, you will get 5 lakhs. So the temptation is huge and the person had paid. And, after SEBI went after that case and they put out a press release, it came out that this is a very rampant scam, especially in Delhi. I've not heard that much of it here, but I know that IRDA is putting out ads warning people about this scam, and this has to be an inside job because they're all from Delhi. But there are some which have happened even around this side of the country. But it is a leak because they know your details. They know that there is something that's happened.
To their policy numbers. Those people has got
Inside job. Somebody either from the organization or something is given it out.
firms like Tata AIG, my policy is there. They are calling me regularly from Gurgaon.
No, those are the call centers are in Gurgaon. That is not, I'm saying,
The roadsters they are calling. Yeah. And then they say this particular commission is being transferred to that agent.
Correct.
If you want that back, you pay this much and you will do that.
correct. So don't believe any of these. Please call up the company and find out. Don't ever do it based on calls.
Yeah.
You had something to say?
Who can which I currently see.
So I'll just tell them to give you a mic so that it gets recorded.
This type of scam which I understand is to become a farmer.
To become a farmer.
Farmer, get a land, you can become a farmer also. And I saw ads where they are putting around 400 trees in 1 acre of land, which is absolutely important. Trees cannot be there; it could be shrubs or something, and they give you huge. You suddenly feel that
But so this is a variation of the plantation scams which happened in the 90s. In fact, I don't know if you...
Picking farmer, because in Maharashtra becoming a farmer is difficult. They give you the example of
Even in the
Amita,
90s, it was the exact same thing. In fact, some of them like the teakwood and strawberry, they even said that they will give you the Satbara Uttara, which is almost impossible to get. They had even promised that in writing because we reported on it.
Maxworth was the first company who did it. Maxworth.
Correct.
And they have cheated almost more than 50 crores in Maharashtra alone.
Yes, and you know the other big one in Chennai of emu farming. There were articles, when I say media is part of it, the number of articles that I have read which said that now emu meat is going to be cheaper than chicken and mutton and all restaurants are going to start serving it. It's not even edible is what I hear now. After people have whole farms of emus and they've had to sort of slaughter them and it's just gone. The money is gone forever. Yes, sir?
The relationship manager appointed by the bank, they change quite often.
I'm coming to that. I'm coming
leave
to
the
that.
job and go somewhere.
Yeah.
How safe is it to part with the information which already know, which they know?
My next segment is that, so I will handle this at that time. Yes, ma'am.
No, I also received this phone call saying that there's some money due to me from LIC.
It's the same scam.
Yeah, same scam. And they said I need to open a new insurance policy in Birla Sun Life or
Correct,
something like
correct.
to recover that.
Yeah.
I gave the first check and somehow
You
when
did?
the ads started coming in, beware things. So I stopped.
But did you get your money back?
It didn't the check didn't get in cash.
And cash. Lucky you.
Thankfully, I went, yes, absolutely. Because now the papers are full of these.
Correct.
So it's not
so
only
there are
Delhi. it's
so
also
many
in Bombay.
variations, and it is happening here also. So it's not limited to Gurgaon because we've handled a couple of cases from Dadar itself, not even far away
But
from
the
this
voices
office.
are definitely Delhi.
But
The language and
But it's all over and we have seen all kinds of variations, and if you read old Moneylife articles, you will see all the mails written there by people, especially even the Reliance fraud, which is going on in a huge way across the country, where they tell you that you will get an interest-free loan which is up to 10 times the premium that you pay, and after that you realize that there is nothing. That is all over the country. We've helped people recover some 30 lakhs. We have complained to IRDA. IRDA has not taken any action against the company. All that they have done is one particular agent has been sacked. But this is what I mean, that, it's a tough job even to get the regulator to do their job.
Somewhere towards the end of the 90s, the banks had also started insurance companies and so on. And then they had this practice of third-party marketing agents. And I suspect it still continues today, and they do leak information to these marketing agents. And this is part of this whole chain by which people call you up and know too much about you. They know about this bank, they know about this insurance policy. How do they know this?
I'm
the information
pretty certain it's information that's
Yes,
leaking
yes.
out. Yes.
to a shady marketing company.
But I wish more people would, voice their views to the RBI. On the 25th, the RBI governor called a few, 2-3 consumer organizations. I was one of the people who went there to talk about whether you're being cheated by banks and whether they worry about suitability of products. This is a new thing that RBI has decided under the Consumer Charter, that it is now up to the relationship manager to sell you only those products that are suitable to your financial profile and your age profile and your economic background. Okay, so now the onus is on them. But like everything else in India, it's a beautiful consumer charter, which is like a motherhood statement with no penalties prescribed as yet. And we've been fighting for the last year since they announced this charter sometime in mid 2014. We've been telling them that it's absolutely of no use unless punishments are prescribed, which they have still not done. So if you have examples, we did a survey last week, and based on that survey of over 1,000 people, I went and presented that survey to the governor. And even there, he had a quip that, these are people who got cheated who would have predominantly, because 90% of the people said that they had been missold some product or the other. And they said these are people, disgruntled people who would be filling up the survey, and it's not happening so rampantly. So if you have examples, make it a point to write. So,
when I was working abroad, one of my subordinates, we issued an email. So it was a scam, and it was about a lottery, that he won a lottery. And this was a young chap, and he believed it. But at the same time, he came to me, and he was very excited that he's going to, win a huge amount. So I said to him that don't get excited. You can give them, you can reply them, then what is the procedure to get this money? So he wrote to them, and the reply came that
you have to pay a small amount.
No, some small amount.
Correct.
To complete the legal formalities. So
Yeah.
I told him that okay, send them the email that you deduct this from my lottery amount. And then there was no.
So you would not have heard from them again. So these are all, the biggest scam in the world is called an advance fee scam. Okay, that is what it's about. So whether it's a Canadian lottery, Microsoft lottery, or some oil exploration thing that you won, or your mobile has won $35 million, which I got yesterday, all this is called an advance fee scam, and people fall for it. Even the Nigerian scam is an advance fee scam. What happens is that I was not getting into details of it, but essentially this, that if you respond to it, they'll ask you for a small amount. It could be $10. So when you're getting 25 million, you're willing to pay $10, right? So if you are paying $10, they've now got you narrowed down to that small lot of gullible people who are willing to pay. Then they will tell you that, okay, we did these formalities. They send you excellent documentation. Let me tell you, they even forge the central bank, letterheads and things like that. Here also, when they talk about the escrow scam, the letterhead has the RBI symbol on the top. It looks extremely authentic. So don't go by the documents they send you, and they send you documentation. So they'll say, okay, it's happening. Now the money will come next week. They'll make you stew for a week in anticipation. One day before you're expecting something, you'll get another mail saying, oh, there's a last minute hitch. There is some other little problem. I now have to pay a little more money. So then it'll be, the $10 may have become, $25. So you're paying that amount again. So they sort of reel you in bit by bit to see how much. So when I say somebody paid 35 lakhs, it was not 35 lakhs at one go. It started with probably 500 rupees. And then it went on. And after a while, again, this is where your mind plays games. You spend 5,000 rupees, you feel, ठीक है, or another 4,000, that's all right, but I may get 25, why stop now? So you end up paying more and more at that time. So once they've got you in, where the amount becomes a little more, it becomes easier to cheat people, because that's when your mind keeps saying that, okay, the guy is so nice, they seem so polite, they talk so well, they've sent me documentation. And remember, they keep sending you authentic looking documentation. That you must remember. So ये तो चोर नहीं लगता है. That's the game that your mind begins to play, and you get taken for a ride. So I'm going to the next one. Sorry, you have some comment?
What is cooperative banks?
Let me go through this one by one. One is that we in India, as long as banks are not privatized, are fairly safe. Sarkari bank, even if the net worth is eroded, you are safe because Sarkar takes care of you. You remember a couple of banks, whether it's UBI or Indian Bank, net worth was fully eroded. We didn't have to worry about our fixed deposits. More and more people were putting money in. So I keep saying large nationalized banks, as long as they remain nationalized banks, nothing to worry about. Large private banks also. It's a global phenomenon. After Lehman was allowed to collapse, it's now like a global thing that they will not allow big banks to fail, because the cost to the economy is very high. The distrust that they have to deal with is a serious problem. In India, we haven't even waited for 2008. If you remember, Global Trust Bank was one of the private banks that came in 92. Complete scam. But India did not even allow a Global Trust Bank to fail. They merged it with the nationalized bank and everybody's money was safe. So the reason for telling you this is, you get an SMS, don't start running to the bank to withdraw everything that you have. If it's a large bank, you don't have to worry. If it's a small bank, I would urge you, if I am living on retirement savings, I would not keep my money in a small bank at all, because then it becomes dangerous. Cooperative banks are under dual regulation. So they're regulated by the RBI as well as the Registrar of Cooperatives. Neither of them regulate them properly, because the Registrar of Cooperatives is completely political. Each bank is under some politician or the other. So even after their net worth is eroded, they know what is going wrong, or they are community-based banks, religion-based banks. So essentially, the regulator can do nothing much about them, because they start playing the community and religion card. And I have seen cases where, the RBI did this once. One bank, I think Memon Cooperative Bank, collapsed and they forced Bank of Baroda to take it over. But now nationalized banks are putting their foot down and saying, we will not do this. You can't dump the losses on us. And so every month, if you all read the papers carefully, like it's our job to do, then you will see at least every month one bank is failing. And this bank failure is declared almost 2 months after it's gone bankrupt. So you can rest assured that at least 1 year before that, they would have stopped paying back the deposits. And if anyone tells you buy shares, it's safer. I know my aunt came to me and said she's putting her money in a cooperative bank, and I said don't do it. And she says, nahi, pan mala shares deta hai. It's even worse. Okay, because you lose the money on the shares as well as on the deposit. I would say if it were my money, I would not keep it in a cooperative bank. Okay, only 1 lakh is insured. Even that insurance comes after the bank goes into liquidation. So you will get that about a year later. If you again, as a senior citizen, if the bank is right next to your house or in your same building and you feel it's convenient, keep 1 lakh there. But the chunk of your deposits, I would advise, okay, there are a couple of examples of big cooperative banks which are as good as nationalized banks. You all know what they are. But couple of them, I don't think there are more than 2. All others, I would say, if it were my money, I would not keep it there.
At least individuals have a choice not to keep in a cooperative bank. But cooperative institutions, societies, are by law they are required to put it in the cooperative.
That is true, but it's changed now. That used to be true, and in fact, that's why that nodal cooperative bank which had gone bankrupt, the Apex Bank, they have saved in Maharashtra. They bailed it out, okay, because money from all cooperative banks was over there. But it's not necessary now. You don't need to keep it in a cooperative bank.
Your fixed deposits have to be in a cooperative bank. If it's a cooperative society, your investments, your account can be whatever, but your investments have to be there. You cannot open a fixed deposit in a nationalized bank.
Your sinking fund should be NDCC.
Particularly,
I'm told that now they have made some exceptions to it. Yes, I'm told, because 2 years ago when that bank was going bankrupt and there was a hue and cry all over Bombay, if you remember, I was told that the government has issued some notification saying it's not mandatory. But again, there I would say our society makes sure that it is in the largest cooperative bank. So nobody in our society was in a mood to go and fight and find out whether it's correct or wrong. So we said, okay, don't bother. Let's keep it in this big cooperative bank so you don't have that much of tension. It's as good as a nationalized bank. Nothing's going to happen.
No, that is something on taxation. TDS is being deducted by nationalized banks while it is not being deducted by cooperative banks. Something of that sort is there.
Until they were not in core banking, there was a lot of things that they could get away with. These are not things that they are allowed to do, but they did it. And they got away also because they know that the RBI is not going to come and regulate them or look at it, or even if they do an inspection, they pass strictures, but they do nothing about it. So I'm telling you that at this point of time, we are fighting Bombay Mercantile Cooperative Bank. I've been writing about it for the last 20 years. It all but failed, then it recovered. Now it's back to being in the dumps. Even after writing letters to the RBI, they do nothing, right? So these are little things that these banks get away with, and they use it as a selling point. Lots of people who want to root black money. Now, everybody in the RBI, I must also tell you, is very cynical. They say, yeah, you want to keep unaccounted money, that's why you go to cooperative banks. That is their sense. It's not always correct, but they have very little sympathy when people lose money, because they say that these are the reasons why you're using cooperative banks. And it's true. They don't look at KYC. They never used to. They would allow all kinds of money to come in. They would allow you to open and close accounts. They would allow you to transfer it, because that is the way in which they survive, and that is what their political masters make them do, because they say that we will handle the political implications of whatever is going on. So like I said, finally, there's only 1 lakh that is safe.
The lockers they have. Is there any problem with the cooperative bank or lockers?
Lockers should not be a problem, logically, because that's a completely different thing.
Okay.
So lockers ought to be safe.
What happens if the bank fails?
They can't touch your locker, because that's a different agreement that you sign. What is in your locker, they're not even supposed to know. Yeah.
You said on the one hand that the large banks and government banks are safe, but then you say safe to 1 lakh, is it?
See, in the last 20 years, the only money that has ever been paid out from the Deposit Guarantee Fund is on account of cooperative banks. It has never had to pay. So there are mischievous politicians, incidentally, who are lobbying to say, and some consumer organizations without understanding it are saying that your entire deposit should be insured, which really means that a politician can rip off the cooperative bank and all of us will be paying for it. Because the minute the insurance premium goes up, you will collect it from the foreign banks, you'll collect it from the nationalized banks, you'll collect it from the private banks. All of us will be paying more, and the money will be paid only to the depositors of cooperative banks. So I think it's more important that we educate people not to put money here than to say that more money should be insured. That's not the solution. But nobody has had to pay. In the last 25 years, not a penny has been paid on account of a nationalized bank collapse or a private bank collapse. Or foreign banks, so no. Okay, the next, relationship managers. Okay, now, as someone said, they keep changing all the time, right? Because they have very, very, very stiff targets. They don't meet their targets in 2 months' time. They're asked questions. 3 months, they don't meet the target, they're out of a job. And everybody needs people, so they show their record. They just roll from one bank to another. A lot of times they persuade you to open an account in the new bank where they have moved. And you must remember that as far as you are concerned, they may come to your house, you may give them tea, but you are a faceless person for them. If they get emotionally attached to you, they cannot make you make wrong investments. So don't get carried away by what a relationship manager tells you. So what we advise is that when you share a number, it remains with the bank. There's not much a relationship manager can do with your number if you ignore him once he's left the bank. But at a time when you get in, ask for one person senior as well as the emails. Okay, and every time if they make what seems like tall promises, you have a little doubt, you're not convinced, make it a point to send an email, okay, to the relationship manager and one level senior, where you will say, okay, I'm buying an insurance from you based on X, Y, Z promises that you have made. Please confirm this is correct before banking my check. Now, 9 times out of 10, they will not bank your check. If they still do, and you need to fight about it a year later, if you have that email trail, by and large, they will not argue. They will just give you money, because they know that before the ombudsman and others, they are not going to, when you have a document which says that this is what you promised. Because every time I say this, people say they don't reply. They don't have to reply. Even the fact that you asked and they have not replied stands in your favor. It is considered a documentation and paper trail when you go to an ombudsman, and it works for you. So make sure that you at least put something in writing. First of all, try and avoid getting cheated at all. If it's too good to be true, avoid it. If you're still tempted, document it. And don't give your check until you've given them 4-5 days to respond. They will usually keep calling you up and saying, don't you trust me? Why will I take you for a ride? I've sold it to 85 others. I've sold it to somebody else. Who they will drop names of people who are financial experts so that you're convinced that if that person's bought it, you should be safe. Whatever it is, put it in writing. And I think you must register your mobile numbers today, because there are two things going for you. One is you can register your number on the DND. So you don't have to worry that if you got it with tries, do not disturb. Not that it's working 100%, but believe me, it's not so bad. It's not as bad as it used to be. And you're not inundated with calls. You get fewer calls. So put your number on the DND, but give it to your bank and your insurance company, because these alerts are important. And especially if you're using a debit card or a credit card, if it ever gets misused, then you get an alert instantly and you need to know. This is what I was talking about earlier, the customer charter of the RBI. Like I said, it's incomplete because until they are going to have punishments, it has no meaning. But at least the tide has changed. Now the RBI has said very clearly that it is up to the bank to ensure that the product sold to you is suitable for you. And till now it didn't happen. Look at this case. Okay, this is a man called Mangelal Sharma from Delhi. He was 79 at that time. He's a yoga teacher. The way they ripped him off, the bank manager goes to his house and he tells him, this is a fantastic fixed deposit which we have got for senior citizens. That's why it's giving a higher return. And he says it's called Development of Your Wealth Scheme. So it's called DWS something. And he tells him, you just write DWS and sign and I will fill up the rest. So uncle, so he wrote it. He gave a check of 7 lakhs. And the next month's later, he realized that he had put his money into a mutual fund that was locked in for 5 years. Now, his point is that I have a wife who needs a knee replacement. So he says, I have kept that money to spend it because we are just waiting for when she'll be operated. There's no question of me locking the money for 5 years. And at my age, even otherwise at 79, I don't want a 5-year lock-in fund of any kind or deposit or whatever. So there's no way I'm going to put the money in. He went to the ombudsman. They asked him one question only, and this is how callous the ombudsman can be. Did you sign this? He said, I've signed it. He kept saying, show me the document and I'll show you. Only DWS is written by me. The rest of it is filled out by them. I can prove this to you. They would not ask the bank to prove it. So you know what he did? He printed that t-shirt with this photo there, and what is written, and you can't see it too well, is that this bank has cheated me. It will cheat you too. And he used to go to the bank in the morning and he would sing and he would dance to attract attention. So people would come up to him and say, Kya hua? And obviously they would see it on his t-shirt and he would tell them the story. The bank didn't dare to throw him out because he was an old-time customer, but more importantly, we got to know about it. And then we contacted him and we wrote about it and we put it out on social media. Believe me, the next day evening at 11 o'clock in the night, the manager went back with his check and returned his money to him. But like I said, he's lucky, did a bit of Gandhigiri. It worked for him. All of you have to sometimes be prepared to do something out of the box to fight for your rights. It works, but won't necessarily work every time.
Is the manager still employed by the bank?
They don't care, you know. You would be surprised. They don't care.
Maybe there's a scope for something like a CIBIL for relationship managers to see if they're hopping between banks and, repeating scams in new banks. It may be...
It is something that we need to push with the RBI, and the RBI needs to set it up. But there is not enough pressure on the RBI. Believe me, they think that complaints are not enough. And I keep saying it's an Indian mentality. We don't complain, we don't record, we don't put it in writing. So I'm really urging you people that don't take things lying down, at least put it in writing. Many people say, Kya fayda hai? We write, nothing happens. Believe me, it gets recorded at least as numbers. The RBI only looks at numbers. If they say number of complaints are too high with this bank, they'll send someone for an inspection, or they will call them and tell them that you have to resolve these. But if you don't even register register that complaint, then we are all at the receiving end. You're doing a disservice to everybody else as well. We met somebody yesterday for lunch. He says, down the line, I'm 100% nobody understands the first thing about the insurance or the mutual fund that they're selling. So at the central office, they decide that these 5 are giving us the highest commission. Okay, so it's based on the commission that is got. In nationalized banks, there is one more thing, which is those who sell the highest get foreign trips, and the insurance companies give you junkets, give you a scooty. That man that I showed about Reliance, they were tempting them with a scooty. So every other day, the insurance companies are giving goodies. And the chairman of Canara Bank told us, he is now sitting in BCSBI, he told us that I wanted to put an end to all this, but all my employees revolted and they said, Baki sab bank mein foreign trip milta hai, saal mein 2 baar, why will you deprive us? And the people who get the most trips are the ones who are giving out loans, because they arm twist. You want a loan sanctioned, you better buy a policy. And I've seen someone from the Northeast who bought 28 policies. He was doing some on-lending microfinance kind of business. Each time to sanction a loan, they made him buy a policy. He had 28 worthless policies. I mean, we look at it and all you can do is your heart breaks to think about what has happened to this man's finances. Nobody cares. And it's a terrible thing. And in fact, the Sucheta Krishnamurthy case, I told somebody in the RBI that they cheated her on mutual funds, they cheated her on wealth management, they made her take a house loan that she did not need, saying that you will get 1.5 lakhs as tax deduction because that's available on housing loans. So though she had money, they told her put the money in mutual funds and take a housing loan. So I in fact call it financial gang rape. If they can cheat you in 8 different ways, they will do that. Okay, and so you have to be careful. Unfortunately, we can't seem to make enough of a noise. Like I said, we are disparate, middle class and rich people. Rich don't care, but middle class are not connected. We don't get together, and that's why we get cheated. I'm now going to go on to this comparison between bank and company fixed deposits, okay? Because this is a mistake that lots of people make. Bank deposits, nationalized bank, large banks are safe. As I repeatedly said, same is not necessarily true for corporate deposits. If you are going to invest in a corporate FD, then you have to make sure that that particular company that you're investing in, you have looked at its accounts, you have looked at its credit rating, and you keep track of it. It's not that you've looked at it 1 year and then you don't bother about it for 3 years. You've seen Yash Birla companies are not paying returns. You've seen Helios and Matheson. There's a Kirloskar company that has not paid. There's a Tata company that's not paid. You've had Tata Finance as well. So it's got nothing to do with a group brand name. You have to look at which particular company's FD is being marketed to you by the financial distributors and agents, and see that you have looked at their annual reports, looked at their credit rating. Otherwise, you should not touch it, because FDs, corporate FDs are unsecured, which means that you are the last person in the queue after everyone else, after all other creditors get paid, just before the equity investor. The really last is the equity investor. You will probably come one step above that. So once the money is gone, there are, again, like I said, senior citizens, hundreds of them at this point of time writing to us. There's a Pune group of 300. There is some Chennai group of 500 in one company alone, Helios and Matheson. There is some Nisa Leisure in which, there are 2-3 companies of that group where there are people who are complaining. We tell all of them, they write to us in our helplines. We say, write to the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. It goes to the CLB. But believe me, they know how to fix it there, because nothing moves. I still don't know of anybody who's got their money back from any of these companies. So at this stage, all you can do is write a complaint, which you should, because you need to at least register that you have a problem. Are you going to get your money back? I'm afraid I can't say that I know of anyone who's actually got it back. One company which has given people their principal back, which was Lloyds Finance. It was a unique case, but other than Lloyds Finance, I know very few. I know that when there was an investor helpline, the few occasional people that you send, see, until it's gone completely bad, the few people, if it goes through a media house or a journalist, then they pay a few of them, or it goes through an NGO. But once the company is completely collapsed, they just don't have the money. Then it's not about you, it's about the fact that they don't have money, right? I'm going to insurance next. You have a question, sir?
This, from what your analysis of Helios Matheson particularly, I understand it is mostly a question of Reserve Bank not giving them permission to lend money beyond a particular year. Is that the real
Not
reason,
true, sir.
or they have really collapsed?
Not true. They have collapsed. I've been writing about them for 12 years, not one. And what I find absolutely astonishing about Helios and Matheson is that their entire top management was in jail for 5 weeks. But other than Moneylife, not a single paper has written it. One paper wrote 2 paragraphs, which someone sent me 3 days ago, where they used the previous name of Helios and Matheson, not even the current name. The last line said, this company is now called Helios and Matheson. So I don't know how they manage it, which is their PR agency, or how they suppress it. But you have, if you want to, 12 years of articles are on the net. So you can read everything there is to. I can talk about Helios for the next hour, but that's not the subject today. But what they're telling you is a lie.
Madam, I think now this comes to the second question. How reliable are the regulators?
Regulators are under no pressure to act. We have 5 financial regulators, and the first one was set up 25 years ago, which is SEBI. And the biggest example of an admission by the government that regulators have failed is the fact that they've set up a body called FSLRC, which is headed by Justice B.N. Srikrishna, who said that these guys are not doing their job, merge them. Okay, so why will you merge them? Because they are not doing the job of at least grievance redressal. Regulation they do. They tinker with regulation. It's easy to sit there, form committees and keep dreaming up regulation every day. You can keep tinkering with it. So corporate governance rules are changed every day. Disclosure rules are changed every day. It has no meaning if it doesn't result in, more transparency or less scams. If that is not happening, it means that regulation has failed. And it's not me saying it, but when FSLRC says merge these guys and make one common body, this is an indictment. And I was in Delhi last week and I was speaking at a seminar where somebody from the Ministry of Consumer Affairs says that they have made a proposal to the government saying that forget financial regulators, put financial regulators, electricity, telecom, everybody into one body and we will do the grievance redressal. I'm not sure they're going to do a better job. After all, they are also government. But it is another admission that regulators have failed, because otherwise, why will they want to take away these powers? I feel that the bottom line is simple. If I get my money back after I complain, that means grievance redressal is working. If I have to tell you that in the stock market, I tell people you have a better chance of getting something back if you file a complaint with the EOW, so the Economic Offences Wing of the police, rather than with SEBI, it means that it's of no use going to the regulator. Isn't it? It's the same with the insurance regulator. When we fought about Reliance, where that scam was going on, where they said you will get interest-free loans, we helped, I think, 33 people. So we filed a RTI to say how many other cases had come to IRDA. We found there were 2,100 cases that IRDA admitted in a 3-month period. And if it is just those 3 months, and if you had filed another RTI asking for 1 year and across the board, what would have happened? So the cases that went from us got their money back. What about the remaining in the 2,100? We don't know, because I'm sure they don't know what Moneylife is. We are too tiny. So it's not like it's Times of India or something. So all those others may not have got their money back. It's the right time to talk about it, because we're talking about insurance. Like I said, that we used to have buyers beware. You had to watch out. In insurance, it's a little bit of the opposite. When you start paying your premium, it's assumed that they are taking you on good faith. So you are this good guy, filled his name, date of birth correctly, has admitted whether you have diabetes, have had a, hypertension, heart attack, whatever. They allow you to come in. Sometimes after a certain age, after 40, they require medical checks. Otherwise, without even that, they say, okay, we trust you, come in. The day you make a claim, that's the day they take a magnifying glass and start looking at what you have filled out in your form. And please remember that's the time. Kahan sign karu is what most people ask, because they have heard something from their agent and they just sign on the dotted line. In fact, Max New York has those ads of how agents cheat people, because most people are happy, they just say kahan sign karo. And we know of cases where someone has said that, okay, there's this policy which is actually meant for people under 63, so your wife is below 63, right, we'll take it in her name. So they fudge even details. They've taken the policies in someone else's name. Okay, you don't fit in, why don't you buy it in the name of your child? Is it important? Does it work for him? Is it necessary? What are the costs? They will not look at. They convince you and you're buying the policies. So you have to look at insurance versus investment. Insurance is not an investment. It is money for contingencies. So every time we talk about insurance, including the 2 Prime Minister schemes that have come, at every level in India, people will say, तो फिर मुझे कुछ मिलेगा क्या? So on 300 rupees as premium also, people want a return. And that is how you get trapped in ULIPs. So you must remember, insurance premium, you've not made a claim, it's a good thing. I know someone who said he bought a car and he had a complaint which he lodged with our legal resource center. He bought a car in 1 year. Every year he had made a claim. And he lost his no claims bonus and his premium had gone up, and he writes an angry letter to say that we need to fight for him. He said, are you daft? I mean, you made a claim every year. Why will your premium not go up? It's not Santa Claus sitting there handing out money, right? But people don't even understand the basics of how insurance works, and you need to spend time looking at it. So when agents tell you, ignore wrong date of birth, main hu na, don't worry, main hu, when the claim comes, I'll fix it, they cannot fix it. Because that's the time when the company is looking at things. You can't fudge illness records. And we are as much as fault where this is concerned. We got an email, again, somewhere, I think from Bihar. And the person says, I had this problem, I got a policy, and now they're not paying. So we said, did you put it in the form? No, I didn't put it in the form. We said, I think they're well within their rights then not to pay. So the minute we said that, 2 days later, we got a letter from him saying that my agent lied. Very clearly, this man knew what it was, but he was now trying to blame his agent and hoping that when he blamed the agent, we would take up the issue and, fight on his behalf. But you have to be careful. You can't fudge. You can't allow your agent to fudge as well. And buying policies in the name of children. This particular policy, in the first 5 years, nearly 80% of the money just goes as costs, administrative costs and other things, and no returns. And we have said, if you feel like buying something for your grandchild, please find an investment product. It will give much higher returns. Even if you're buying something for, you're much younger and you're buying for your child, if you die, then it works. Okay, because they get the entire money. But if you live even 10 years after you bought the policy, believe me, any fixed deposit would have given a significantly higher return. Not just higher return, significantly higher return. But you will hear more of that in the next session because Devashish is handling some of this. So I'm not going to go into it in detail. We've written 30 cover stories on insurance. I would urge you all to look at it. They're all available on the net. So please take a look. And I'm going to run through the next. What you need, you don't, even life insurance. Believe me, not everybody needs it. You don't need it at all ages. So check whether you even need life insurance. If you have no dependents, don't waste your time with life insurance. You need property insurance, which is, even there you need to understand what gets insured. So it's not that the whole value of your property gets insured. Some basics are given. You need a medical insurance by and large, but it's getting more and more expensive. And there is now a lobby. I think Stratfor has come up with a study, and we agree with them, that sometimes if the government gives us some tax concessions on opening an FD that will be used only for medical emergencies, that will probably work far better than the medical insurance, which is just getting too expensive for most people to buy. And as you go older, it gets more and more unaffordable. So to some people, we say it makes far better sense to put aside a certain amount of money, create a nest egg, which is your medical emergency fund, and not bother with insurance at all, because that, if you're going to pay 50,000-60,000 as premium every year, and you have an illness, they say average in a good hospital, your cost is usually 3 lakhs. I mean, I'm not talking about outliers where things may be different, maybe much higher, but you can actually collect that money in 3 years' time instead of paying a premium. It's something that's worth thinking about. And of course, like I said, we don't have answers to everything. Geriatric care and things are not even there, how much ever you're willing to pay. Yes, sir.
Regarding health insurance, I was insured at the time when the scheme was introduced by New India and the four nationalized companies. However, now I find that the right in the policy insured since 1995. So all the terms and conditions that were applicable to me in the 80s when I was insured are no longer applicable. What do I do for this?
You can write to IRDA, but they will probably have an explanation for why this happens. If you send me an email, I will send it to our insurance expert and he will be able to tell you what can be done. But they would have found a legal loophole through which they are doing it.
No, the only thing that I have learned, not got an answer, is that records were computerized in 1995 or thereabout. And after that, everyone who was insured earlier is now insured from that date. I don't accept this explanation.
I will check. If you write to me, I will. If you don't mind, I'm going to move a little faster because I think we are running a little behind schedule, right?
So, one point to make, why don't they simplify the forms for any kind of investment so you're not dependent on the agent to fill it out for you?
It's something.
Most of it is unreadable.
Something we need to fight for. The two new insurance schemes of the PM, it's a single page form. So we should try and demand that should happen to everybody else as well. So avoid emotional traps. I'll just go through it, if you don't mind. So some things, I'm now going to run through a series of tips which I think should be important because all these are learnings that have happened after we've started Moneylife. So don't pool in your money. Lots of times your children do it, and please remember that just because it's your child doesn't mean you won't get cheated. We know of cases where they persuaded the father to pull in, the loan was in the son's name, they've thrown the parents out. Okay, so you can lose the roof on your head by doing this. So don't fall for emotional traps. Do not take credit cards in anyone's name. If you have in your wife's name, it's fine, but if you take credit cards in the name of your son, grandson, you may do it out of love and affection. It may be a big price to pay in your senior years when you're not capable of fighting. Do not introduce people to banks or stand guarantor. All the rules have changed. In the 80s, you couldn't get anything without a guarantor. Now you don't need to do it. So please think twice because that could land you into a lot of problems. Then you know that there is this Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Act. There is a case going on in Maharashtra. Lots of states have done nothing much to act on it, including old age homes. But you can file a complaint and you can get immediate action from the police. That much at least continues to happen. 23 states have implemented it. 11 have framed rules, but it exists and they listen to you. The main provisions here are you get a monthly maintenance you can demand from your children. And I think it is very valid because we have done a survey where we find that all parents spend far more than they can afford without keeping savings for themselves on their children. So I think the children in India at least have a duty to look after their parents. So if any of you are in such situations, please remember, and I know that lots of people are, I don't expect anyone to admit it, but there is an act to protect you and you can take advantage. I would suggest don't try and do it on your own. Go through something like Dignity Foundation, which will guide and help you on what steps to be taken and what are the possible consequences that you can face. You must have a financial checklist of all your commitments. One of the things we keep saying, write a will, but even if you don't write a will, at least nominations is an easy way to ensure that your assets go on to somebody that you want to give it to. So make sure that your nominations are up to date. And you ask any banker, they'll tell you 40 to 60% of the people do not fill up that one line of nominations. It is even worse in flats. Okay, I mean, this is the single biggest asset, and the nomination forms are so easily available. I'm the secretary of a really tiny society, but even in our society, 50% of the people have not filled up nomination forms. So please go home and do it. It's really important. Then all your finances are tracked. This is what you pay for when you're paying someone else's bills. So you must be careful about not doing it. And it's not just, I'm not talking about small examples. Suresh Prabhu discovered that he was a defaulter in CIBIL because he had bought a phone for his son and the son went abroad. The bill was unpaid, gathering dust somewhere. And when he wanted a credit card, he discovered he's a defaulter. Okay. So he then dug it up and paid for it. But my point is, be careful about anything that you're paying for somebody else, because they are callous when they don't have to pay the bills themselves. Then I've already told you about reverse mortgage. I think Devashish will tell you a little more, but essentially it is the opposite of a home loan. In a home loan, you are paying money in order to pay for the value of the home. Here you have the home, so you're getting a monthly EMI in order to encash that value. So you're drawing it down bit by bit. There are two kinds of reverse mortgage policies. They're not the best. They need to be worked on. There should be better reverse mortgage. But if you are really short of cash and your life expectation is not going to be more than 10, 15 years, you want to live well, please draw down value from that asset. It allows you to live in the same house until you and your spouse is alive. So your heirs can either pay back the amount and get the residual value, or if you don't want the house, there is nobody else that you leave it to, you can get a much higher EMI. So you have more spending money while you're alive. We can handle these. There's no point in discussing them. Anyone who wants it, write to us and we can discuss it more in detail. Devashish also is going to talk about it a little bit. And one of the things I say these days, shocking statistics in India, we have 96 crore mobile users, only 6% are above 50, which is really a tragedy because today every concession, every deal is available if you are online. So you want to have increasingly it's difficult to have a diver. They're going to charge you 15,000 or more. You don't need it. You're probably going to go out once a day if you're post-retirement, or maybe when you're going for a movie. You want to get a cab, you want to get an Ola or an Uber, you need to have an app. Otherwise, you can't get it. You get connected. My mother has a WhatsApp group which has increased her social life phenomenally because she knows who is at least going to come to a certain meeting or the temple or whatever it is that they meet. Facebook reconnected her with all her relatives. My mother is 83. I think if you're not on it, this is an area where we want to actually conduct classes. So if you don't have someone at home, persuade people like Dignity or write to us. You have that feedback form. Please fill it out and we will do some of these digital literacy classes. I think it's really, really important, including buying your groceries. Okay. I mean, it is a chore as you go older to go out into the market and carry loads of stuff, find a car, especially if you don't have a driver. You're getting stuff delivered at home and you're getting it at better prices than you're paying in the wholesale market. In fact, when I buy things online, I actually buy it even for my domestic helper because I discovered that if she buys 5 kilos of onions and potatoes, she goes to a wholesale market and she was paying 5 rupees more than what I was getting online. So for various reasons, it is worth looking at it. And I think that number that we have, 6% above 50, is tragic. And all of us need to get together to change it in a big way because it's important. It's the future. Then list of benefits. I think most people don't know what are the benefits available. Under the Modi government, one thing that they're doing well is this whole redoing all the websites. So please take a look at this pensioners portal. While a lot of it includes calculators for people who are drawing a government pension, every other concession, whether it's your train tickets or whatever, with links is available on this website. So that's another reason why you need to be online and know how to access things. Right? And now the last bit I'm going to run through, which is wills. I mean, these are all the estate planning tools that are available to you. Will is when you are no longer there and you want to give away your self-earned property, which is important. Gift is when you're alive and you want to do a deed of settlement or gift it in your lifetime. You create a trust if you want to leave something to maybe an organization, take care of, children who are challenged or have special needs. You don't know who's going to look after them. You can create a trust. Nominations, I've already told you need to take care of. In a lot of ways, buying insurance, a life insurance policy or whatever takes care of your loved ones. A power of attorney, which allows, if you are not capable of using your bank account or doing it, you trust people, you can use that. And of course, the Hindu undivided family has its own set of rules. Those who are in it will know about it. I'm not getting it. This is not the session to get into details. We do separate seminars on wills. So this is just, I'm going to touch on a few things. Okay. So it's a very simple thing to make a will. It doesn't have to be it has to be in writing. It doesn't have to be in any particular format. Registration is not mandatory. You can do a holographic will which is fully handwritten and signed. It does not even have to have a witness. But if it's challenged, then somebody who is the beneficiary has to prove that it's all written by you. Otherwise, it must be signed by two witnesses in front of each other. They don't need to read the will, but they must see that you have signed and they have signed in front of each other. Each page of the will must be signed by the testator, who's the person who's making the will, and initialed by the witnesses. As I said, no stamp duty registration is required, and it can be revoked any number of times. Okay, so it's called. There was somebody I know who said that his grandfather used to spend his time working on his will every single day. He left a will of 300 to 400 pages. When somebody was nasty to him, he said, I'm going to strike you out of the will. But when you do these things, you have to remember, explain. Okay? So today I'm angry with you. I want to cut you out. I have to say, I'm angry with you. I'm cutting you out for so-and-so reason. And if you don't, that person can challenge it. You want to disinherit someone, it has to be explained. You want to leave twice the money to one of your children than you're doing to the other because you think one is well off, the other needs money. Explain that in the will, because then there is no challenge and it is simpler. Identify yourself correctly. In India, we have so many there are so many Mehtas, there are so many Shahs. A name like Sunil Mehta, there may be hundreds of them who will stand up and say, it's me. So identify yourself fully. Who are you? Where are you staying? What is your family? So that there's no confusion about identity. It's the same with the witness. If you have an executor who's going to execute the will, make sure that that person is not only properly identified, that you have spoken to him or her, and she's ready to take on the job of executing your will, and that you have made some provision for it to be worth their while to do it. And if you please remember, more men in this room, take care of your wife specifically. Don't assume that, your children are going to take care of her. It doesn't happen. So you have to make sure that you are properly providing for it. Women in the room, please make sure that your husbands do it. Most women are unwilling to even broach the subject. So best way is bring them here. We have no problems discussing it openly. If you don't do it, then your property gets divided on the basis of the Indian Succession Act. Now, the Indian Succession Act, there are two of them. 1925 applies to Christians. 1952 applies to everybody else, the Jains, Sikhs. The Parsis have their own act. The Muslims have their own act. And even in that, the Shias have a different one and the Sunnis have a different one. There's slight differences. If you're a defense person at war, then you are allowed to make an oral will. And also, one of the Muslim laws allows an oral will. So you must remember that, if you think your wife is taken care of and there are so many people who are all not talking to each other, you know what's going to happen. So this very graphic description tells you, if it's your self-owned property and you have strong views about what should happen to it after you're no longer there, make sure that you write a will, right? And the importance of nominations, it's not a joke. People put all kinds of people as nominees. Too many people think their wives don't understand anything. They make sure the wife doesn't know in her lifetime. There are people who have put friends and neighbors as nominees rather than their wife. And the first money goes to those people. That money has gone forever. So please understand the seriousness of what I'm saying. Make sure the nominee is someone who primarily you want the money to go to. And don't worry about whether they're educated and know to go to a bank. They will take care of that. That's a lesser evil than leaving it in the name of some friend or relative saying, this person will take care of my family. And these are live instances happened here that I'm talking about. We do a seminar on wills. People have stood up and said, my father has done this. He named his business partner as a nominee. The guy has walked away with the money. And this is deadly example I talk about when I say how careless people are about their nominees. The guy who had 1.4 crore in his savings account. He got divorced. Okay. The divorce settlement is over. Within 4 months of the divorce, he passed away. Now, during the divorce, any lawyer should have ensured that he changed all his nominations. But obviously, lawyers don't care. When he died, even though the money was in a savings account, his old mother couldn't access it. She had to fight a court case because obviously the wife didn't want to let go of 1.4 crore, right? So even though she's divorced and remarried, she fought for it. And finally, the case was decided virtually on humanitarian grounds, where the judge says, okay, I've looked at all the precedents, but I think on justice lies in me letting the mother get the money, and he's given a path-breaking judgment. So nominations, I can't stress enough, even more than will, nominations are important. Please go home and make sure, at least for your flat, do you have a proper nomination or not? This is another one. These are both examples which have come here, okay? In these seminars, which I've now finally put, woman finds that the nominee is her brother, and this is very common. People get their first job and their nominee is either their mother, not usually their father, because, you know, they think it's very cute, and I think it is. So when you get your first job at 22, it's lovely that you put your mother as a nominee. But when you're 45, if you haven't changed it to your wife when you have 2 children, then it's rather sad, because this man had fought with his brother 10 years ago. All his assets were tied into one Citibank account, and all that Citibank did is they said, you know, we can't do anything. We'll have to let him get access. We will not release the money for 3 days. You please go and file a caveat in court so that he doesn't take away the money. They, on humanitarian grounds, they did that much for the woman, but some banks will be callous enough not to do it. This is the second one. He died. He had left with widow and 2 children, but his sister was the older sister was the nominee, and she staked a claim. Okay, so she fought for it, and this, I think all of you know, I don't have to tell you, this is the story of all our families, right? It happens all the time. This is not something unique that you're hearing. One of the things that we write about is that if your marriage is not registered, please do it even today. It is very simple, and it becomes like a family certificate, because if you get your marriage registered now, then they will ask you how many children you have. They put the photograph. It's almost as simple. It's a slightly different form from a marriage registration form that you fill when you're getting married, but it's a simple thing to do, and it acts like a succession certificate, which makes it very, very easy for your family to even claim pensions and other things. So if you have not done it, this is something that you need to think about. And there is a Married Women Property Act, which those who are in business, if they want to ensure that, you know, money goes to their wife and that it can't be touched by other creditors, then every insurance policy allows you to open it under the Married Women's Property Act. So you can say any policy you want to open under that act, but it means that after you open it under that act, even you can't make changes. The money will only go to the nominee, which is specified over there. I'm telling you that I'm far behind schedule. Don't ask me why. So I think any details that you want on this, my email ID is there in the feedback forms. So please feel free to write to us. And the last slide is this, which is the living will. A lot of people ask it, especially after the story that we've had recently of the KEM hospital thing. People want to know. So I just want to make one point. It is not yet legal in India. There are guidelines that are specified, but more and more people are conscious of the fact that they don't want to be kept alive with tubes in them forever. If you put it down on a piece of paper, it's called a Ichhamaran. There is a whole bunch of people who have an organization and lobbying for it. Dr. Kulabawala has prepared a document. I think it gives a level of takes away the guilt from family if they have to make a decision when you're not conscious anymore. So if you feel strongly about it, that you don't want to be in hospital with tubes in you and living forever in a coma or whatever, then it makes sense to do it. It is not yet legal in India, but it's legal in many other countries around the world. Yeah. Thank you.